Welcome back to Homesteading with the Zimmermans, where each week we give you another episode of what's happening here on our Northeast Iowa 21-acre homestead. My husband Alvin and I have been married for 25 years, and we have 7 children. 5 of those children still live at home. Our oldest 2 are married and no longer live at home, so this means we also have 2 son-in-laws and 1 grandson so far. So on our 21-acre homestead, we seek to preserve the self-sufficient lifestyle of our Old Order Mennonite heritage for the next generation. We involve the children in every aspect of the homestead, from raising and harvesting our own meat, gardening and preserving to fill the family's larder, or preserving the dairy from the family milk cows, plus all the many other skills that develop the character and integrity and relationships of a family that seeks to bring glory and honor to their Heavenly Father. Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Homesteading with the Zimmermans. My name is Ruth Ann Zimmerman, and I am the face behind our channel. And it's a brand new year. So it is now 2025, and everybody is making New Year's resolutions, and I don't really, I've never been one for resolutions, and especially since the family is bigger and busier, it seems I'm really just along for the ride. Like, I'm just the manager of the chaos, and wherever the boat takes me is where I need to go. And wherever the biggest needs are is where I end up being. However, we do have some goals for the homestead. And, you know, it's never like with homesteading or with life in general, there's a lot of things that are out of your control. So it's often not this is the year we're going to do this. That's really not how we make homestead goals. It's more towards, we're going to work our way towards this goal, and we're going to leave room for God to intervene and direct us the way that He needs for us to, you know, we're going to leave room for God to get His will done in our lives, and we're going to leave room for us to be sensitive to God speaking into our lives that way. You know, is it through other, you know, inspiration that we get from other people, or just through prayer or reading His Word, where He might change the direction. If I could have a quick minute of your time to talk about our sponsors. Our new Backwoods Home magazine came. So this is the January, February, March issue, and one of the articles that I'm most excited about in this magazine is how to graft chicks to a broody hen. And it's a very in-depth article, and if you've been here a while, you may have watched the video where I kind of explained how when we get our meat chickens, how we take a broody hen and kind of graft, you know, our 30 or 40 meat birds as babies onto that broody hen, because it helps them develop their scratching for grains and things like that. And so I'm super excited about that article in here. And he even writes about their success in grafting as many as 30 and 40 chicks onto one broody hen. So that's one of the articles I'm super excited about. There's a whole bunch more in here that I know you'll love. The landing page, or the link to sign up for a year's subscription, will be the very first link in the description. And if that's too complicated for you, make sure you're signed up for our email list, because I'll also be emailing the link to the magazine with the discount to your inboxes. So when I say these are our homestead goals, these are things that we purpose in our heart to work towards, but we're open to God directing us down a different path. So one of the first things that I'm most excited for is refining our the way we raise our hogs. So we've had a breeding pair of hogs for quite a number of years. I would say maybe 4 years now. And the first sow that we bought, even though she lived for 2 straight years, she never got pregnant and never had any babies, right? So we ended up harvesting her, and we bought in another sow. Now the first sow, our first breeding pair was purebred Mangalitsa. And then we just bought in a sow that was a mixed breed like Duroc and Berkshire and Yorkshire. So that's the sow that we have now. But because our first sow never got pregnant and had babies, we didn't have to refine our fencing in a way that we could keep the boar from the sow, right? So last year, we ended up with 3 litters total. And so, of course, we're like, scrambling. We've got all these pigs, and we can sell them as weanlings, which that was what we did with the 1 litter. We sold them as weanlings. Actually, it wasn't in 2024. It was late 2023 we had a litter, and then we had another 2 more litters in 2024. And so we sold a lot of them as weanlings, but then this last litter that was born, they were born in the spring. Actually, they were born in summer. We didn't end up finding buyers for them as weanlings. It was summer. We were busy. They were born out in the woods, and they weren't quite all under our nose, so we weren't like, we got to sell these. And then what happens is, by the time fall came, we were like, okay, now we have these 6 pigs. We already have 3 in the freezer. Anyway, I'm rambling. So to refine our breeding program will look like this. What we've experienced this year is the amount of money that we need to sell a fat hog and make profit. The people in our community, in our area, don't want to pay that amount of money. So by the time that we have one of our hogs fat, we would need like $400 or $500 for a fat hog, and people aren't willing to pay that price. Or I should say, we haven't found the people that are willing to pay that price. And you have to understand, in our area, there's not a lot of people, right? And funny fact about Iowa is there is more hogs than people in Iowa. So that could be part of why you can't sell a fat hog for $500, because people can find hogs anywhere they want. They can go to, confinement and buy a runt or something, and, it's like $150. So anyway, people don't want to buy a fat hog for $500. And then, if you have a slower growing breed, you've got even more time and resources into them. So our plan is, and we've already put things in place to execute this. So we've divided our pasture where the boar cannot get to the sow, and then we will only put them together in the beginning of the year, and she will have 1 litter of babies like late March, early April, and then we'll separate them all, and then we will raise those babies, and we will harvest them in the fall, regardless of how big they are. If they're smaller, then we'll just need more. We'll just need 4 for our freezer instead of 2. So conventional raised hogs are the reason, they say, okay, a fat hog is considered 300 pounds, is because that's when their profit is at the highest, because they put in this money, this much food. And this is when the farmers are making the most money. So that is considered, this is the prime time to harvest your hog. But for us as homesteaders, it makes more sense to harvest them before we go into winter, regardless of how big they are, because we're at the end of our resources in the fall, right? So all summer long, we can feed them scraps from the garden, and we've had cows that just freshen, so we have an abundance of milk, and we can fatten a whole litter of pigs without a whole lot of buying feed. But then when fall comes and everything freezes, then, and the cows are brought in off of pasture, and then we have to start buying feed to finish fattening this litter of hogs. And if we have to buy feed all winter, that makes some expensive pork for our freezer. So our plan is 1 litter in the spring. We will fatten them as long as we can, and we will harvest them in the fall, just as our resources start dwindling, as the cows, production cuts back and the garden freezes, then we will harvest them. And then all the pigs that we will feed during the winter is just our boar and our sow. We will only need to feed our breeding pair all winter. And then I've been talking with Beth Doetry every time I meet her, and I've been warming up to this idea, and she's been talking to me about it, and I'm super excited to grow these 2 vegetables. The one is, there's a big turnip and a squash, and they're both heirloom varieties, and you can grow them. They're maintenance free to grow, and then I'm going to store those in big bins, and that is what I'll use to feed my breeding pair of hogs all winter. And then they'll get milk, and we probably still will need to buy some grain for them, but it won't be nearly the amount of grain that we would need to buy to feed, a litter of piglets or, half-grown pigs. So that's my goal. I'll put the link, because I know I'll remember the names. Tromboncino. Tromboncino is the name of the squash that you can grow. And I know you've seen me talk about this. You could, when they're young and tender, they're like a summer squash, and then they will harden and cure, and they're pest resistant, and they've done well. They grow vigorously just on compost piles. So those, and then the Mangowurzels, I think it's Mangowurzels or something like that, is a kind of turnip that is also grown for feed purposes. So my plan is, in our big new building, to have bins where I can store these vegetables that I'm going to grow, and that will help feed our breeding pair of hogs very economically during the winter. So that's the first thing that we are going to execute. And we've finally gotten our fencing for the hogs, where it's trustworthy and they can farrow in the pasture and the piglets aren't running out everywhere. But I mean, don't quote me on that. That is like we're working towards that goal, because piglets are a whole other story. So, but we really like raising our own pork, and we like the mixed breed of the Mangalitsa and the Berkshire. We did like the purebred Mangalitsa meat, but we like it mixed. We like it half Mangalitsa. We like that a lot better. Not as far as taste, but the amount of resources that it takes and how it finishes. Like, you have less fat and more actual meat when you mix the breeds like that. So that is probably one of the goals that I'm most excited about, is to feel more in control about our hog situation. That's what I'm most excited about. So next, I'm going to talk about our cows. And in the early years of having milk cows, I got really discouraged this time of year, because like, for example, right now temperatures are going above freezing during the day, and we've had snow and we've had rain, and so the ground is partially frozen, and it's just really messy. It's slimy and muddy on top, and it's hard to keep the cows clean. And they're all up in the barnyard because they can't be out on the pastures, and because our watering system for winter is up by the barn. And so I know that this is just a season, but in the past, winters would get me really down about my cows, and I'd be like, I just want to sell them all. I don't enjoy going out when it's messy and the cows are dirty. But this year it feels a little different, because I'm like, okay, this is just a season. I'm looking forward to spring, when everything's clean and fresh and the cows are clean. But the most exciting part about our cows, our milk cows, is our 2 current milk cows are bred, and then we have a heifer that's bred, and we also have a beef cow that's bred. So in June, by July, and because we rented somebody's bull, they're all due within a month. So the beef cow is fine. She'll take care of herself, but that means we will have 3 milk cows and 1 will be a heifer. So our plan for the milk cows is we will get this heifer, trained to milk, and then we'll do DNA testing on all of them, and then we'll decide which 2 milk cows we keep. Because honestly, we don't need more than 2 milk cows. We never planned to even have 2. Our goal was just to have 1 milk cow. But then what happened is we struggled to get her bred. And if a cow doesn't have a calf, she's eventually going to dry up. She needs to get pregnant and be bred so that you can continue to milk her. So because our very first milk cow that we had, we struggled. I mean, she had 2 calves, and then we lost access to the bull that we exposed her to, and she wouldn't take with AI. So we kind of started collecting cows as milk security. Well, we can't breed this one. We should have a backup cow in case we can't breed this one. So that's kind of how cow math worked on our farm, and now we have 3 milk cows. But that's okay. We were excited to be generous and share a milk cow with somebody else in the community that will want one. So we haven't trained a heifer to milk in a long time. Our very first cow we got as a heifer, and we trained her to milk. So it'll be interesting and exciting to train Lizzie to be a milk cow. And she is half Jersey, half milking Shorthorn. So we'll see how that goes, and hopefully we can, sell a good milk cow to somebody in our community. And then the other goal that I have for our milk cows is to find a good cleaning routine for my milking machine, so that we can use the milking machine, because we've finally invested in a very good quality milking machine that's trustworthy, right? That's not going to let us sit in the middle of milking. And our usual habit is for us just to milk by hand. I milk the 1 cow by hand, and the boys milk the other one, or the kids milk the other one, and it only takes us like 15 minutes to milk the cows that way. But with looking at having 3 cows due within a month, that means that there's going to be a lot of milking happening, and it's going to take us a while. And the kids, they're children, so milking 4 gallons of milk at one sitting is a lot for them. So my goal is to use this milker, and we'll also hand milk, but to have the milking machine be a large part of our milking system. And to do that, right now, when the kids use the milker, they dump the milk because we don't sanitize the milker, because I don't want to use bleach. And the milk runs through plastic hoses. So it really needs to be cleaned well, because you get milk stone kind of build up, like the calcium builds up, and then you can't use it. It needs to be sanitized, because any milk that runs through the milking machine, if I want to use it to make cheese or anything, I just don't want any bacteria built up. So I've been doing a lot of research on how best to clean a milking machine. And so that's one of my goals. Before June, I want to have that all down pat, so that we can use the milking machine and keep the milk and keep it all sanitized and clean. So if you have a system for cleaning, if you have a milk cow and you clean your milking machine without bleach or harmful chemicals or toxic chemicals of any kind, I would like to hear from you and hear your routine. Because now, with hand milking, all that we need is stainless steel buckets and a stainless steel strainer, and that is so easy to clean. There's no plastic that needs to be, that's porous. Stainless steel is so easy to sanitize. I just sanitize it once or twice a week with some peroxide, and then we store our milk in glass. So that's one of the reasons that you don't see us use a milking machine, is because we only use it in a pinch, and then we dump the milk to the pigs because we don't sanitize the machine. And anyway, so that's the cows. Moving forward in 2025, that's the plan for the cows. By next year this time, we should be down to 2 milk cows. But there again, leaving room for God to move is priority. That's, the goals that we're working towards. But we're okay if God shifts things one way or the other. And then the chickens. If you've been here a while, you know that chickens aren't my favorite, but I am being more intentional about it because we're eating a lot of eggs lately, and I really like that. Eggs are fitting in, like having an abundance of eggs is doing what is, it's helping me as a cook from scratch cook. So in 2025, I want to pay more attention to when do I need to order more laying hens so that I can have an abundance of eggs year round. Up until now, this is kind of how our chicken program has worked, is I get a batch of chickens and they're laying well for a while, and then summer comes and they all go outside and I'm just like, well, they're hiding their eggs and I can't find them, and I end up trading milk for eggs from, you know, with a neighbor. And then in the fall, we lock them all up, and I'm just like, I don't know why they're not laying. I'm doing everything right. I gave them some light. They have food and water. And then I'm like, oh, maybe they're old hens. And so I've really just not been intentional about my chickens. So I really want to put more effort into managing my chicken program this year so that we can have an abundance of eggs year round. And then the other thing that has always tripped me up with chickens is, what do I do with those old laying hens? So in the past, we've just kind of let them roam free. And, you know, they've helped themselves to the pig feeder or wherever, and then the wild animals get them. But so I've been doing some studying and see what other people do, and Beth Doetry says that they take their old laying hens and turn them into pig feed. So that would, you know, that's an option because that would help our pig costs, our pig feed costs. Other people will harvest them and turn them, you know, they'll turn them into canned meat, because when you pressure can chicken, it makes it a lot softer, so it's not just tough chicken meat. But I do want to be more intentional, and I want to learn how to be a better chicken keeper and not just a frustrated chicken keeper, because I think they should give me eggs all the time without me putting in a whole lot of effort. So I've been working closely with the boys, and we're, you know, because if I can teach one of them how to really, really take care of the chickens well and manage her, then I don't have to be there every day all the time. But personally, I want to be intentional about learning to manage that. And then ducks, you know, we've only gotten into ducks a couple years ago, and now we have the Muscovy ducks, and I really am liking their eggs, so I'd like to expand that. I'm not going to dive in head first. Muscovies are known to be good mothers, so I'm hoping to grow my flock, but I still have to figure out what to do with the drakes. I have a little too many drakes, and I got to figure out what to do with them in the winter time, because right now they're just kind of free ranging all over the barn, and they, although the Muscovies aren't real messy when it comes to water, they do have poop piles that are messy if you step in them and it's not below freezing. So they're just kind of free ranging, and I'm not real happy with that. I should figure out a way, you know, we kind of need a little duck house. I don't want them in with the chickens because my chicken house is already too full. So I want to be a little more intentional with my duck program, but I really know that I know that I love ducks. And right now I've got about 24 duck eggs in my fridge waiting to make pasta, because they're my favorite for making pasta. So my goal for the garden for 2025 is to give you a real brief backstory. So, you know, growing up, my family, you know, in the Mennonite culture and in my family, you just used your rototiller and you tilled all summer long to keep the weeds down between the rows. That was how it was done. And so that's how I've gardened up until probably 4 years ago, maybe a little longer. I started noticing, and the no-till method and the deep mulch method started catching my eye. And I've been watching everyone use this method, and I've been cautious. And, you know, is it trendy? Is it just a trend? Does this really work? But then I started realizing that using grass clippings is the same thing. Like, it's like a mulching method where when I put grass clippings on, I don't have to till there all summer because the grass clippings keep the weeds down. So I've started paying a lot of attention to it, and I'm really excited to take it to the next level, because my thing is, I know that no-till, I can, like, I can know that it's a good idea, right? But my question is, how do you keep the weeds down? And I have to figure out what that looks like in my garden, in my climate, with my soil. Because everybody says, put wood chips on, put wood chips on. But it's not that simple, because number one, our soil is dormant for like 6 to 7 months out of the year where it does nothing. And I have actual trees in places where I've tried wood chips. In one summer's time, I have actual little trees growing from the wood chips. And it's not because tree seeds were in the woods, it's because the wind carries tree seeds from all over the countryside. And tilling has always been a way where we've kept that from happening. So then when I have wood chips on, like, I don't only have to guard against weed pressure from the soil. Like, I'm guarding, like, I have to battle the weeds that are coming through the air, because where we live is so windy and so vast here that weeds, like, there's weeds in the farm, there can be weeds in the farmer's fence row half a mile away, and we get a dry summer day with 30-40 mile-an-hour winds. Those weed seeds are coming. So I think one of the biggest differences in our climate and in our area here is we have weed pressure from the skies and from the wind. Like, we're not only battling the weeds from the bottom up in the soil. So even though we're not disturbing the soil, there is, and there's weed pressure. So for example, my garden is probably 20 feet close to the roadway. And in Iowa, all our roadways have these deep ditches on either side of them, because that's where the snow goes. And those ditches are to fill up with snow and keep the roads dry. And those ditches just grow up with weeds, right? So all we need is a wind to come from the west, and those weed seeds are all tumbling right into our garden. So now we do a good job in trying to keep that mowed. We take the weed whacker and we mow that. But the weed pressure is still different here than it is in most places. I go back to Pennsylvania, and I look at their gardens there, and I'm like, they don't have any weed pressure, because as far as the eye can see, nobody has any weeds that have grown up and gone to seed. Like, here, it's everywhere. Like, it's everywhere. So that's kind of why I've had to be like, okay, how can I make this work for me? And so what we're doing is, last summer I had one area of the garden that had an awful lot of weed pressure. It was a new area of the garden. So we're collecting all our cardboard. And I've already started the one area last fall. But that area, I don't have high hopes for that, because, like I said, that compost that I put on top of that cardboard is just going to sit there all winter. And I won't really be able to plant into that compost in the spring, because it's not fully composted yet. So we collected all our cardboard, and we plan to plant our crops. And then when they're babies, we plan to lay the cardboard up against and pile on the compost. And then hopefully we won't have to disturb that for the rest of the summer. And that'll kind of give us an idea of how much of this we can do. Can we actually work? Can no-till actually work here in our area? We'll see how much weed pressure we actually have from the skies. So, and the other nice thing about that is, this year I don't need to plant a lot of sweet corn, because I know that what I put in the freezer last fall is enough for 2 years. So I only need to plant a small plot of sweet corn for fresh eating. And that means because anytime you have row crops, if you have 12 50-foot rows of sweet corn, are you going to wood chip all of that? Are you going to push those into where you have no-till? So anyway, those are all things we need to figure out. But this year, without us needing that giant space for sweet corn, it gives us a little more room to play with and experiment. The other thing that I want to do in the garden is, I want to plant my potatoes a lot later because here's how I'm thinking. If I plant my peas and then when the peas are all done, I put my potatoes in, even if it's July, because the potatoes, what I'm noticing with my potatoes is I plant them in May, you know, when I can by July, they're already mature and the plants are dying. And that means when I dig them, by October, November, December, they're already sprouting. Like my potatoes are sprouting so early in my basement. And potatoes are not long season, right? So I can wait till July to plant them because potatoes, they'll still be ready before frost. And then the potato will be a lot younger when I harvest it, and it should keep a lot longer. So that's my goal for potatoes. We will see. You know, of course, I can't control the weather or any of that, but I'm excited to try that. My sister and I were talking about this here recently, and we were like, yeah, that could work. That could work. We could plant the potatoes a lot later. And also the other thing, we started our conversation because we were talking about the pressure of the Colorado potato beetle. And my sister was saying she lost her entire crop because of the Colorado potato beetle and she didn't get to it in time. And we both agreed that later in the summer, there is no pressure. They've run their life cycle already. And so this started all of us talking about when is a good time to plant potatoes. And the old timers say you plant them on Good Friday, rain or shine or snow. That's when you plant the potatoes. So we're just gonna do our own thing and see what happens. And then, so those are the garden things. And then the most exciting part about this year is my book, The Heart of the Homestead, will launch this year. It will be available for pre-order sometime early summer, and then it'll arrive in September. So I'm really excited about that. Like super, super excited. We've chosen the cover, I've seen the layout, and I'm so, so excited about it. And what this book is, The Heart of the Homestead, is kind of it's where I found what my passion is. Through writing this book, I found what my true passion is. And as much as I love gardening and as passionate as I am about, you know, wholesome nutritional foods and my milk cows, as much as I'm passionate about all those things, my heart is for the family. So this book is full of stories and things that we've learned and how we run our homestead. It has recipes and how-tos, but most of all, what I'm most excited to inspire people towards in this book is to not only nurture the physical bodies of their family and not only work towards wholesome living, but to nurture the very souls of their family. So as I wrote the book, that's what always, every chapter, as I wound up the chapter, that's what came out, is that it doesn't matter if you have the best milk cow and know how to make the best cheeses. If you do all of that and forget to nurture the hearts of your family, it doesn't count. So that's what my book is about. It's about the very heart of the homestead and the family. So the book launch party and all of those details will be coming. And I have a pretty full speaking schedule this year because of the book, because we're launching the book. So I'm excited to meet a lot of you as I travel. And then personally, like things that I'll be doing behind the scene that you don't really get to see a lot, is I'm working on a cookbook. And so that's going to be all of my downtime. The next couple months is going to be working on that cookbook. And I know a lot of you have been asking for that and are excited about that. And then I had one goal for 2025 that I've already done. So my older daughters were talking about how crocheting, like the granny squares, hang on, I'll be right back, I gotta show you. So my older daughters were showing me pictures of granny squares, crocheted granny squares, and they're like, Mom, this is really coming back into style, and would this be hard to learn? So I kind of filed it in the back of my mind that I could sit down, and I don't know how to do granny squares, but I know basic crochet, I know how to do a chain stitch, right? So how hard could it be? And then a lady at church started volunteering at school, teaching the middle school and high school girls crocheting. And so Hadassah knew a couple more stitches than I did, and she knew enough that when we watched a YouTube video, she was like, oh yeah, we can do that, Mom, it's not hard. So we all went to Joann's Fabric and we picked out yarn. 2 days ago, we started on granny squares, and we are having a good time. The girls took to it like ducks to water, and these are the colors we chose. And we've got a whole stack of granny squares done in one day. So yesterday was Sunday, and we just sat down and we crocheted. And so that was one of my goals. I had decided, you know what, this would be a great thing for us to do together, and it would give us, you know, something to do when we're together this winter. So we kind of decided that we were going to all choose one color, and then we would put them together and make a blanket. But I am thinking that, you know, because everybody crochets a little tighter or looser, so not all our squares are the same size, so it might not work well to put these all together as a blanket. So we might turn these into something else and then just have everybody start their own blanket, because we really didn't know that we would take to it so fast, and that we would be able to be so fast at it. Anyway, so that was a goal that I kind of had set, like in 2025, I will teach the girls how to make granny squares. And now it's not even 2025 and we're well on our way. So the other goal that I have for myself, so I've taken to knitting. I've been knitting hats, like basic hats and sweaters, for a couple years now. I taught myself how to knit, and now I've you know, created some knitting friendships, and people have helped me out, because one of my drawbacks was I couldn't read a pattern. So now that I can read a pattern, there's no stopping me. And I've been working on these socks for a couple, probably 2 weeks now, you know, because I don't get a lot of time to knit. And I finished one this weekend. I still have to tie off my ends, but I finished this sock this weekend, and I'm working on the next one. So a goal that I have for myself for 2025, on top of everything else, on top of writing the book, is I want to learn a cable knit. And I'm not sure if this goal is too lofty, because 2025 is looking to be really busy, but I've been told, people that knit have told me, if you can do a sock, you can definitely do a sweater. So if I learn cable knit, I would also like, by next year this time, to be well on my way to knitting myself a sweater. Or maybe, you know, knit a smaller sweater for Winston or Harrison or somebody. But I'm pretty proud of this. So anyway, those are what we're working towards in 2025, homestead-wise, personal-wise. So guys, when I edit this video, I am going to go back and find, you know, farm and garden videos to go, you know, with me talking, so that you don't have to sit here and just watch me talking all the time. But thank you for being here, and thank you for allowing me to share what we're working towards in 2025, and changes that you might see. And also, having this video out there will kind of help me be like, oh yeah, I talked about our hog program, you know, our pigs and our breeding pairs, so I can give you an update and say, here's what they're eating, and here's when we had babies. So it's kind of a little entry point in 2025 for myself as well. So thank you for being here. We will be back next week, and I never know what I'm going to share from week to week. I don't have a plan. You just kind of come along on our life. So I do have kind of a goal to show you what we eat from our pantry. But like I said, family life happens first, and I just grab my camera and decide to film something one day. I'm not very professional about my filming schedule or anything like that. But thank you for being here and just being gracious as followers and commenters. And just thank you for all your support. We'll see you next week.